So, George, thank you so much for allowing me the time to interview you. And you're someone who I followed and respect hugely in the area of hydrogen. And hydrogen is fairly new to our company. It's only a couple of years old, but we've been keeping an eye on it for quite some years before then. I'm not sort of rushing to market with what we've done. Was really just observing what was happening and what was going on in the directions and the different products coming out. So electrolysis bottles, larger versions of that, ionizers, etc., etc., elemental magnesium, aluminium hydroxide, all the other methods going on. And very conscious of us as a company, we're looking for the best solution for ourselves. And so throughout that journey, which has been for me personally about 6 or 7 years, we've ended up making contact with you, and you're gonna be building our machine, the Osmio Infinity, using the technology you've developed. So I really wanted to say thank you so much. It's an honor to interview you, and I just wondered if you could briefly expand on your background and how you got into building hydrogen, or building the best hydrogen machines in the world.
Well, I like to think that they are in any case, but man. Okay, so back in my early years, I did experiment with hydrogen, making hydrogen, just like any scientific high school student would do, kind of thing, and played with it a little bit, and left it as I was doing other things having to do with fuel savers. I'm an independent inventor, and in the mid '80s, I learned about Brown's gas, and I wanted to have. I was doing some experimenting. It came back to hydrogen assists combustion in engines. So if you feed a little bit of hydrogen as a catalyst into the engine, it helps the fuel molecules break apart, because the fuel molecules have what's called bonds, and it takes a certain amount of energy to break those apart. But if you add hydrogen to the mixture, the amount of energy is vastly reduced, so it takes less energy to break it apart. So therefore, when the molecules then recombine into water and carbon dioxide, there's excess energy left over. So you get more miles per gallon with your gas. So that was good, and I was experimenting with that. And I learned that that was essentially called Brown's gas. So back in the early 80s, that's when I discovered this, the name for it, and Yul Brown had been doing quite a bit of research on that. Yeah. So as I developed the fuel savers that had to do with that, I also saw that Yul Brown was making large machines, which he used to use the hydrogen to fuel acetylene torches. And that was good. I wanted one for my own shop, but at the time, they were about, I got a quote for $300,000 for a 1,000 liter per hour machine. I guess they were custom building them or something at the time. And being an inventor, having very little money, that was way outside any kind of budget I had. But I knew pretty much what was going on. So based on that and my alternative energy research, I developed a Brown's gas electrolyzer and for myself. And it turned out that it was twice as efficient as the Yul Brown machines. It was half the weight and half the size. So it was considerably better technology. When I finally got around to actually having a Yul Brown machine in my shop that I could test, I found out that my machines were significantly better. And it just continued from there. Now, in 1996, a customer who was using one of my Brown's gas machines. Now, at this point, I'm selling hundreds and thousands of electrolyzers worldwide for fuel saving and for this torch work. And one of my customers, God only knows why, used the gas. He bubbled the gas through water, and he used that water on a cotton ball that he put in a plastic cap and taped to his forehead in order to so when he told me that he did this, and in 3 weeks' time, frankly, I didn't believe him. I didn't laugh in his face, but using what I knew to be a combustible torch fuel or fuel for engines, to help the body heal just didn't make any sense to me. But this was God giving me a message, which comes back to bite me later. And so what I did is I told my customers and email subscribers about this, and they this potential health application, because even though I didn't believe him, I was trying to keep an open mind, not often succeeding. But and they were getting back to me. They started getting back to me because other people were trying it with all kinds of interesting things. Now, this was back in the mid-90s and went on, but I'm really hard-headed, and I didn't actually start drinking the Brown's Guest bubbled water, similar to what you're making in that little bottle of yours there, until, although that's probably a PEM technology, so it's not Brown's Guest, it's just hydrogen.
Yeah, this is just hydrogen, PEM technology, yeah.
Okay, so they're nice little things and definitely worth the money. So we, in 2005, I started drinking the Brown's Guest bubbled water. And since that time, I've never been sick. I've had major life experiences that give stress that are supposed to be, and I used to get sick with the flu about 3 times in the winter. But that was, so by 2007, I was convinced that it was doing some healthful things for me. And so I started building electrolyzers specifically optimized for health purposes. That was my ER50. And we sold several hundred of those, and and again, the people were getting back to us with all the testimonials. And eventually I developed but then people were always asking me, can we breathe the gas? Now again, crazy person. I'm thinking this is a combustible gas, and I know how explosive it is. I've had several explosions in my shop and stuff. So I did not want people to be breathing a gas which I knew to be explosive. And I did experimentally breathe it myself and learned a lot of things back in the 90s, just because I do experiments. Anyway, so I told people, no, don't, okay? I was wrong, again. Wrong, okay? Well, in December of 2015, a customer sent me a video of essentially hydrogen bars back in the Asian country. I think it was Korea in this particular case, with Epoch company, and they machines, and they had essentially, it showed the video of these people coming in, like we buy a cup of coffee, but they sit down in a chair and they put on the cannulas, similar to what we're doing here. You're doing with your little bottle, and I do with my bigger machine. Put on the cannulas like that. And they sit back and have a calm 5 or 10 minutes and buy a Brown's Guest treatment. And I thought to myself, and as soon as I saw that, I realized something that I should have known before, is that if you mix the gas with enough air, it's not explosive. So you don't have a problem with breathing a combustible mixture. The key is to make sure you have less than 4% hydrogen in the intake breath. Now, I knew this because when you go to ignite a torch, you can't ignite it with the striker way out here. You have to ignite it with the striker right next to the torch tip, or it won't ignite. The gas diffuses in the air so fast that it becomes a non-combustible mixture, even a teeny ways away from the gas coming out of the torch tip. So I knew that, but I didn't equate it to breathing. So anyway, as soon as I saw that, I started reconfiguring things and I started breathing the gas myself in March of 2016. Now, that history said, I will say how God gives you whispers. If he doesn't, if you don't listen, he hits you with a brick. Well, it turns out, and this is a little hard for me to say, but it's very important for the why I do this. It turns out that God gave me the whispers, first of all, how to make Brown's gas back in the 80s, that it's good for health purposes in the early 90s. In the early 2000s, my wife was diagnosed with a diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And she did everything necessary to bring her A1C down to normal, without drugs. She did it completely with health and exercise, with diet and exercise and what have you, and we learned a lot. Then other of her organs started to fail. And so we knew there was an underlying cause, but she was very naturopathic. She didn't believe in going to medical doctors. She believed that hospitals are a place you go to die. She also believed that, didn't want anything to do with the Brown's gas bubbled water. I don't know why, but she absolutely wouldn't even drink the water or breathe the gas, nothing. And it turned out that it ended up being true due to complications. Like over 10 years' time, her body was failing more and more. And in the end, we knew it was, and so her body was attacking itself, and her organs were essentially disintegrating at one point. And she couldn't even roll over in bed without assistance, and I'd had to carry her to the bathroom and things like that. So I became a 24/7 caretaker of this wonderful woman who definitely had opinions of her own. Mm-hmm. And so all my research, everything stopped for practically a decade. And then in early March of 2016, she died. And 10 days before she went to the hospital, where it turned out she would die, anyway, she went to the hospital. They started the diagnosis of all the various things, and they discovered it was an autoimmune disease, probably. And then mm-hmm. she went into ICU because she couldn't breathe anymore due to water on her lungs due to the neuropathy. And so at that time, I pretty much got home, and after a period, I was able to start my research again because I had to do something to distract myself, and I was able to breathe the gas for the first time in March of 2016, and I videotaped myself doing that. Okay, so managed to get my life back together. Everything had kind of gotten blown apart, and over time, one of the things that my wife had been saying is that she didn't want to have the machine that looked like a science experiment in the house, that was my ER50. So I put all the components into a redesigned case. I bought a machine from China that essentially it's a Brown's gas machine, and I thought I was out of business when I first saw this machine because they could retail the machine for less than half of what it cost me to build the machine. Actually, almost a tenth of what it cost me. They could retail the machine. So I couldn't, there's no way I could compete with that. But it turns out that I could take that machine and I could take it apart and put it back together with my technology to reconfigure it for a really good inhalation machine. So so we did that. And I debuted it at the Tesla Tech conference, and there's been amazing things that have happened since, because now people can have a machine that they can have in their house and do this. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the rest of the story is that several months later, I got a testimonial from a woman who had, and she started breathing the gas, and in 3 weeks' time, 3 weeks, her symptoms were gone. And of course, that practically devastated me again, because here, God had given me the solution to my wife's illness in the middle of the 1990s. And because of my hard-headedness and not listening, she essentially died, even though I had in my own shop what she needed to. Mm. So that I've dedicated pretty much for the rest of my life to make sure that other people don't have this absolute terrible situation, health situation. If there's anything I can do to help prevent it, other husbands and wives, making sure that this doesn't happen. So I so appreciate you and your business and the few others out there that are on the leading edge of doing this. We'll make this happen. We'll help people be healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. It's amazing. We went on a journey to discover so many things ourselves, and hydrogen already for the last year, it's really taking off, and people are getting benefits and recording them, and the testimonials do fit the clinical studies. And we've looked at all the methods, right? So this is one thing I really wanted to ask you about. I mean, you mentioned God, right? I'm actually very open-minded about things, even though for years I would say I was an atheist, right? But then I started learning more about water, and then it took me into waves and vibrational physics, and then suddenly suddenly God starts making sense, right? And I've been learning Chinese medicine as well, and learning about qi and heavenly qi and things like this, and it makes sense, right? And so um, there's a lot of there's a few guys actually I know who have done and are doing free energy research, who also happen to have ended up in a very spiritual science way, right? So I can see that journey for you, and I've kind of had similar kind of thing myself, and also some tragedies as well. Then they're really sent to test us, to help us learn and grow, and achieve what it is, our mission in life. And for me, and you obviously as well, our mission is to help people, and we know it happens with hydrogen, but we're concerned as well about the other methods that are out there. For example, with the clinical study data, if people are using elemental magnesium tablets to get the H2, they're also getting a dosage of magnesium, and we're not quite sure about the bioavailability of that magnesium, what the long-term effect is. We're also not sure even about hydrogen itself and whether it could increase the mitochondrial performance of some cancers, for example, that attack the mitochondria. So there's so much more research that needs to be done in hydrogen, yet we're seeing so many people have transformative effects in their lives. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, obviously there are technologies like small electrolysis bottles that will give you a milligram or up to 1.6 saturation rate of hydrogen. There is the elemental magnesium tablets, and they're the main things on the marketplace, but there's also your machine. So I wanted you to help people watching this video understand what I already know about how your invention is different to this, and it's different to elemental magnesium, and why people would use any one of those, say, 3 different technologies.
Very good question. And I have a frequently asked questions on my website, which describes 9 different ways that people can get hydrogen into their body, starting from just buying a bottle of hydrogen from the welding supply store and hooking it up to essentially a regulator and cannulas and stuff like this, to actually getting the correct probiotics so that you actually get your own hydrogen from your food. So just a quick regression there. Our bodies are 62% hydrogen by volume, not by weight, and 24% oxygen, 12% carbon, and 2% everything else. So our maximum or our mega nutrition that we want to eat is the hydrogen. We need to get the hydrogen. Now we can't breathe hydrogen in the air like we do with oxygen. So the thing is to we get our hydrogen from our food, but like virtually all other food, we don't actually absorb the food directly. We absorb it because of bacteria. Now our digestion starts in our mouth with our saliva, goes to our stomachs with the acids and stuff like that. It all prepares the food so that by the time it gets to the colon, just about before it exits, there's a specialized bacteria that actually break, and again, we're back to these atomic bonds, actually break the hydrogens off from the carbons, from the hydrocarbon foods, and cause the hydrogen to form and go out into, right through the intestinal wall, so your intestines actually breathe, just like your lungs, and that hydrogen gets into your bloodstream. That's the normal way that hydrogen gets into our body. But antibiotics, while they are a wonderful technology and needed, also have an unfortunate side effect in that they kill all the bacteria, not just the bad bacteria that you're trying to get rid of, but also the good bacteria that we need to digest our food. And and also artificial sweeteners. There's been scientific studies they're really bad for these particular bacteria and other chemicals that are that people end up consuming as well. And even if people don't think they're having antibiotics, there's antibiotics in just about all the food that we eat. That in various ways, they put it on plants, they give it to animals. So people are consuming antibiotics even when they don't know that they are. And so we end up with hydrogen deficiency. Virtually everybody in the world these days is hydrogen deficient for one reason or another. And when you have a hydrogen deficiency, and I'm sorry, I'll get back to your question there, but a little bit of background is necessary.
Yes. Yeah.
I believe when you have a hydrogen deficiency, the first thing that shuts off, because okay, just relate it to another thing. the body knows how to survive, and it will do whatever is necessary to maintain life. And so if you're getting too cold, hypothermic, the body will shut off heat to the extremities to preserve core temperature. Well, the similar thing happens if you're hydrogen deficient. The body starts shutting down systems that aren't immediately life-threatening and to preserve life. And so one of the first things that goes is the regeneration system. So if you have a scar anywhere on your body, what has happened is the body has patched that instead of actually regenerated the skin. And we can get back to that a little bit later. So the next thing that goes is the immune systems. Because it isn't immediately life-threatening, the body starts shutting down various immune systems because it doesn't have enough hydrogen to maintain them. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, organs start to fail. So as soon as you start getting the hydrogen in the inhalation and drinking, you have to do both, because scientific studies are showing some ailments are best treated with the hydrogen-rich water and some of them with the actual inhalation. And when you're breathing, you actually get I could breathe for 12 seconds and get the same amount of hydrogen in my body, in my blood, as drinking a full bottle of that water that you have there. So the inhalation actually puts in lots and lots of hydrogen, but the drinking is absolutely necessary as well. There's lots more we could say on that. Okay, so now we know that when you get the hydrogen, your organs start working properly, your immune system start coming back online, and then your regeneration system starts coming back online. And for myself, when my immune system started coming really back online, I had hand warts and a plantar's wart on my foot, and those disappeared. Even though I'd had them since childhood, and I'm 60 years old now, so like for 50 years I've had these warts, and my body never got rid of, because that virus, the immune systems weren't strong enough to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. The next thing I noticed was that all the scars on my body disappeared. And I had some pretty good ones because I grew up on a cattle ranch. And we did some various...
it's amazing, George. I watched your video on YouTube of you, was it in 2016 or earlier? It was your first machine?
Yeah, the first time I breathed was in 2016, but the machines I started building for Brown's Gas for Health was in 2007. I started selling them.
Okay, I'm not sure which video I watched, whether it was 7 or 16, but in either way, now looking at you, I just can't believe how different you look to then. Like, you look younger than you were either in 2016 or 2007. So, you know, it obviously it obviously works. So.
Yes, I'm keeping a series of pictures, and I'm actually looking like I'm aging in reverse over the last few years. So when I took the video when I first breathed in 2016, March of 2016, I was pure white, and I had less hair. It's a little harder to see in this video.
Yeah, that's the one okay, so that was 16. That's what I've seen, right? In the video you have on YouTube of March 2016, I'll try and put a screenshot in this video, but just to put it side by side to now, you definitely look younger now by some years as well. So, and your skin looks different as well. Looks kind of just not wrinkly and kind of clean and clear.
Yes.
Well, so it's amazing. It's really inspirational, and it's kind of something that I realize. Just going back to this, right? We're doing this bottle. There are other methods that we've looked into. This elemental magnesium method, and it's highlighted the fact that obviously not only are you getting hydrogen, but you're also getting magnesium, and you're also getting other things that are in the ingredients of the tablets, the solvents and the binding agents, the sweeteners as well, right? So that's why, as a company, we said, okay, this is not right yet until we know what the long-term impact of magnesium intake, which may or may not be bioavailable, we don't know. So I just wanted to ask you, what is your guidance or perspective on that for everyone?
Okay, I have done a little bit of research into the magnesium tablets, and I found that, first of all, you have to get it from somebody who really knows what they're doing, who understands the science behind it. Because if you take magnesium and you just, elemental magnesium, and you drop it into water, it will separate the water into hydrogen and oxygen quite efficiently and quickly. And it ends up with a black sludge called magnesium oxide and the hydrogen. That's essentially what forms, because the magnesium rips the oxygen off of the hydrogen. The hydrogen's free to go, but you have that magnesium oxide now. And magnesium oxide is a poison. You don't want to have that in your body. And so when you just do straight elemental magnesium, you definitely don't want to not do that. All right. So the people who really know what they're doing put some other things in there so that there's an interim thing that happens, so you don't end up with the magnesium oxide.
Mm-hmm.
The magnesium binds with other things that actually makes the magnesium bioavailable, and it still releases the hydrogen, and this other stuff is not poison. So the people who and I don't know all the just in my head, I'm just giving you an idea of what's going on, layman's terms. So when you do it properly, you end up not poisoning yourself that way. The other thing you have to watch is that, again, reputable people, because if they're getting the magnesium, which is really inexpensive from China, for example, they have no protocols for making it pure over there. So there's a whole bunch of other heavy elements that you may be getting when you're eating these tablets that are not magnesium and aren't part of this thing. So you got to watch to get it from pure sources.
Mm-hmm.
So
and well, one way I think people can test this, or if they are buying elemental magnesium tablets from a supplier, they can ask the supplier whether they've done any tests or research about blood levels and excreted urine and feces levels to actually that's the way to measure the bioavailability of their product. I think is the way they would do that. But at least you can ask them about how the bioavailability of their product has been tested. I think is a good question. Yeah.
Yep, I agree. That's a good question. The more of these questions that they can competently answer, the better feel you get for what kind of company they are that you're buying it from.
George, this is one of our best hydrogen product. It is our best hydrogen product at the moment, mainly for the water, but it does have a cannula that's giving me 20 to 30 milliliters per minute. Let's put it in perspective. How many milliliters per minute will we be getting from the Osmio Infinity product?
Okay, so the Osmio Infinity will be able to produce 833 milliliters per minute. Mm-hmm. So obviously logarithmic gain, and I personally have the wherewithal to do any of the technologies, the 9 different technologies that I outline and what have you. And I choose this particular one, not only because I made it, but because I feel it's the best there is out there. No question. Mm-hmm. So the thing, just quickly getting back to the hydrogen tablets, the other thing that you're looking at is making sure that you're not getting too much magnesium. So even if the magnesium is bioavailable, if you're taking that without all the other balancing things, the calcium and phosphorus and things that need to balance the elements in your body, then you get one to the exclusion of the others. And even if it's still deficient, it ends up being as if it's too much, because your body has to take then calcium from your bones or whatever to balance it out. So you have to watch for getting it correct ratios as well. Mm. So I think that the tablets are good for interim use if you are traveling or something like that. But I don't think that I would, and I've never taken a tablet, one of them, except for experimental purposes in my life. But for people who believe in them, I think that short-term use is fine. They're not going to be a problem. Mm. But getting back to the actual, when you look at all the different ways you can put hydrogen into your body, I do believe that the Osmio Infinity is going to be the best technology to use, because you not only get the benefits of the hydrogen-rich water, it also has the additional benefit of what we call electrically expanded water, which we can expand on later. And the oxygen is a good thing to put in there as well, because then you don't go hypoxic or anything. And then you get the inhalation as well. So the things that it can do good for, because you got the hydrogen-rich water, and the things that you can do good because of the inhalation, and it supports all 4 of the protocols. It's got everything. And it can do some other things too that we'll get into in a year or two, mm-hmm. that we're already doing in our research, but it'll be retrofittable to any of the machines that people buy now. Mm. So
we're hugely excited, George, because this is going to be the ultimate product, because we've had such good feedback from people across different disease problems with regard to using the hydrogen and pure water in general. We know that this is is touching on the doors of really getting to the bottom of what, you know, to affect the DNA of someone to actually heal. And so we're expecting much more significant results, even more than we've had, obviously, because of the dosage. So could you just give us some guidance on, for example, with this much higher level of hydrogen, can someone overdose, or are there some conditions that is not recommended? Are there any contraindications about anything that you've discovered so far?
That's a really good question. And it's actually covers several different aspects of what's going on. Okay, so first, you don't want to overdose. Overdose is the right word, because there's no toxic limit. Let's just start with that. There's no toxic limit. What happens when you're breathing the hydrogen, if you breathe too much, in quotation marks, you just exhale the excess. So your body just naturally maintains homeostasis once the blood gets saturated with the hydrogen. So there's no toxic limit of hydrogen or electrically expanded water when you're breathing it. And the amount of oxygen that's in the gas is almost exactly the same as the air that we're currently breathing anyway, 21%, 33%. And the amount of oxygen that you're breathing in with the gas, it means that you take essentially the same as taking an extra breath an hour. That's how much extra oxygen. So you're not going to get oxygen toxicity. You're not going to get hydrogen toxicity. There's no toxic limit. So getting back to the, I'm sorry. So first of all, there's no toxic limit. Second, but what you do have to watch for is making sure that you don't get too much hydrogen so you have an explosive mixture, as we mentioned before. So you got to keep the limit, and virtually all the scientific studies that are showing the health benefits of breathing the gas show it at a 2%. 2% hydrogen in the intake breath is sufficient for getting all the therapeutic benefits. So there's no reason to breathe even close to the 4% explosive limit. And now technically it's 4.7%, but I always say 4% because I try to keep people under the 4% limit, under the 4.7. So 2% is enough. Now, many people believe, and it's easy to believe, that if some is good, more is better. So just keep in mind that the only difference between 2% and 4% is how fast the blood saturates. Once you've breathed enough, even at 2%, that the blood is saturated, you're breathing out almost as much hydrogen as you're breathing in. So the difference is, if you're breathing a 2% mixture, it takes about 20 minutes to saturate the blood, and a 4% mixture is about 10 minutes to saturate the blood. But if you're doing a half-an-hour session, there's really no reason to be doing 4%, because most of the time you're actually breathing out pretty much as much gas as you're breathing in any case. So more is not better, except that it saturates the blood faster. But then once it's saturated, all you're doing is exhaling the excess anyway. Getting back to the Osmio Infinity, we can maximize the therapeutic value for any particular person. This is one of the features of this particular machine that should be put on all the machines out there, and unfortunately, they haven't caught up yet. So what that means is, for any given person, they breathe in a certain amount of air. And you want to make sure they're getting the 2%, at least the 2% when they breathe it in. So you want to be able to adjust the machine so that it's only 2% or up to 4%, but not over that. Now, for a person my size, that would be about 12 liters per hour of hydrogen. And if you're half my size, or even an infant, obviously that would be way too much hydrogen. When they breathe that little infant breath, or even a child or a small woman, and women have about 25% less lung capacity than men. It's just a physical thing. So you have to be able to optimize the gas production when the people are inhaling, because a little bottle like what you're doing there, you could give that hydrogen to an infant and not have the explosive limit, because it's just a tiny amount of hydrogen. But when you get into something that's truly therapeutic, like the Osmio Infinity, then you have to be able to adjust it to optimize the therapeutic value. So that's the factors that I'd be watching for. And the final thing is contraindications. What happens? So when you first start breathing the gas, your body is just going to freak out. Okay. Now, when I say that, I call it weirdnesses. Now, the very first time I breathed the gas, I breathed it for 15 minutes at about 6:30 in the evening, and I couldn't sleep all night. I literally was awake. My eyeballs were just, I was alert. And it was very disconcerting because I'm the kind of guy that can just fall asleep against a rock. It's easy, but I had no sleepiness in me whatsoever. It wasn't like a coffee buzz, and there was no pain or anything involved like that. It just, I was alert. I was totally alert. And it really helps me when I'm sitting at the computer like now because when I feel myself kind of starting to nod off, I think, oh, well, just what I'm, can you listen? It wakes me up. I get energy and alertness from the gas. Alternatively, my current wife, I've remarried since my late wife passed. When she first breathed it for 15 minutes at about 6:30 in the evening, she was out. She just had the best night's sleep ever. Mm. So absolutely, totally opposites. And there's been people that have said they get a headache, or people that they get a rash or something like that when they first start breathing the gas, because what the body does when you breathe the gas or drink the water, the body decides where the hydrogen is going to go. Your body knows what's going on inside itself, and your body has amazing, incredible healing capability. But it needs the food, it needs the nutrition, it needs the energy to do that. And so as soon as you start providing that, the body just, and this is where I say freaks out. It says, okay, I'm going to put it here and here and here and here. But it may not necessarily be going to your arthritis or something that you want. If you apply the gas or water externally, you decide where it goes. But when you inhale or drink it, then the body decides where it goes. So when I advise starting slowly, this is a very powerful technology. And once the body gets used to it and knows it's going to get it on a consistent basis and what have you, then like now I can breathe all night. I can breathe all day. I'll breathe all night. Everything is just normal. I just feel healthy and normal. I don't get oddnesses or weirdness. So what I recommend for myself, and I have to say I'm not recommending for any particular person because I'm not an MD and I can't diagnose or
that's right, yeah
anything. So but what I advise is to start with about 5 minutes 3 times a day, and then each day add a minute. So by the time you get up to 20 minutes 3 times a day, your body is used to it and you can go. This is pretty much what I've been discovering over hundreds of people that are using the technology, thousands since 2007.
The one thing I mentioned earlier about, is there any, I mean, I know there hasn't been any studies that have uncovered any sort of major negative, but obviously people are still looking whether it could, hydrogen could in a way act in the opposite direction. Could it improve the performance of a cancer cell rather than help destroy it, for example? Is an area we know needs more research already, so because it hasn't really been studied extensively, yeah.
Yes, the technology is relatively new, so we need to watch on that. In the hundreds of people who have gotten back to me, of the thousands of people who are using the gas, I've noticed 3 occasions where the people, when they had a flu and they were breathing the gas, their flu got worse. So the virus in the lungs, which people aren't really aware of this, but the inside of the lungs is actually still outside of the body. And just like your digestive tract, even though it goes right through you, is technically outside of your body. So your body's immune systems do have things in the lungs that help get rid of viruses and stuff like that. But when the people have been starving, which reminds me of the other thing I wanted to say, you have to consider the hydrogen as a food. It's not a drug, it's a food. And it'll take time to heal your body. Your body takes time to heal. It took decades to get to where it is now, being deficient, but it takes time to heal. So you have to consider that you've been on a fast. Think of a fast for a month, a water fast. You bake nothing for a month but water, okay? And then you don't break that fast with a 7-course meal. You're gonna get sick, okay? So that's the kind of feeling that you would get if you had too much hydrogen too fast. Because the hydrogen is food and your body's gonna start doing that. Now, the similar thing happens with this thing that I was just talking about, where their cold got worse. It didn't get significantly worse. It hung on longer than the people who weren't breathing the gas and had the same flu theoretically. So those viruses liked the hydrogen, and it helped them multiply. This hydrogen, it helps plants, it helps fish, it helps birds. You can give it to anything, and they do better. There's a whole other.
So, George, if say in that example, you've got the flu, a virus lung infection, is it better to breathe oxygen or instead of hydrogen, or because there's this kind of role of hydrogen and oxygen and how they work together and whether you should be using one or the other. People with MS are going to hyperbaric pressure chambers and getting that sort of therapy, but yet people with MS are having wonderful feedback, giving us wonderful feedback about the product and what it's doing. So. Is there anything you can explain? Any insight about that?
First of all, I'll just finish a little bit on the. So if people are breathing and it's not helping immediately, like when you get a flu, you just stop breathing the gas and just keep drinking the water. And then when the flu is gone, once your immune systems get powerful enough, then the breathing of the gas while the flu is actually going to be helpful, because your immune systems are going to kill those viruses regardless of whether you're breathing the gas or not. Okay, so getting to the oxygen. You can't use oxygen therapies with the Brown's gas, with the HydrOxy or HHO, whatever you're calling it. The oxygen therapy and the hydrogen therapy are exact opposites. And the oxygen therapy is great for people who need additional oxygen, or they're using oxygen to oxidize minerals for essentially chelation, or they're using it for getting rid of bacteria or pathogens that are oxygen sensitive.
Yeah.
So the oxygen therapies are important in and of themselves. They're great therapies, but the hydrogen therapy, on the other hand, it's a food, and one of the things it is a selective antioxidant. So as soon as the hydrogen gets in your body, it'll combine with oxygen, free radicals, the bad free radicals. I'll get to that in just a second, a little bit more, and just make water. So there's literally no toxic anything formed. It just makes water. It's the world's best antioxidant. It's also the world's best anti-inflammatory. So we get back to the oxygen and hydrogen therapy. You don't want to do them together. You want to do like oxygen therapy one day, hydrogen another day, if you're using them both essentially at the same time, because the oxygen oxidizes, it tears down, it stresses, it does things to the body that are necessary, but it oxidizes. Whereas the hydrogen, it builds up. It instead of stressing the immune system, it rebuilds the immune system. So you can see that you don't want to do the two. I would do the oxygen therapies first, and then come in afterwards to clean up the free radicals and rebuild the body. So you've stressed the body. Now the body has something to do. Similar when you're making muscles. You want to stress it, tear the muscle, then the body rebuilds it to stronger, to compensate.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very intelligent that way.
Yeah, and obviously we're dealing with deuterium depleted water, and we're looking at how that could be complementary. So is deuterium depleted water, in your view, a complementary thing to use with hydrogen inhalation or even hydrogen rich water?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The DDW water has been great. I see nothing bad about it. So the purer the water that you can get when you're, in my opinion, like I drink distilled water. I've drank distilled water since 2005. You can obviously see that I'm still around.
Yeah, looking good. Still around and looking good. And actually, the next time I'd like to interview you is in the year 2100 and something. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, we'll definitely speak again as we age and show. I mean, I want to be a living case study of this in the next 50 years. So
yes.
one of the things that got me into hydrogen was when I read about populations around the world, in Shenzhen in China, in Hunza and other places in Mexico, where people have a very, very long life. And Japan has a very strong culture of longevity and and these things. And I saw what was going on in hospitals in Japan and people after heart attacks and strokes using hydrogen inhalation. And I thought, why are we not doing this here? Why is it not happening? So we didn't, had a very strong desire and intent to do this, but we have to do it with the safest product. Because even with these bottles, George, like the first bunch that came out didn't have the right membranes, didn't filter out the gases, you see, in the right way. So they're actually putting those byproducts in the water. And there's a guy who's made a YouTube video showing the products that were putting chlorides and so on in the water, back in the water. So uh, because of the lack of testing and just the cheap products, and we notified Amazon about this and all sorts, and they're still out there. And we live in that world, so we needed to bring out a genuine product, and it's helping. This Osmio Infinity, your invention, we've already sold all of the ones that we've ordered, by the way, because we've got health practitioners, clinics are crying out for this, and I've been crying out for this product for the last 7 years. And I'm getting one. But given the nature of how it's set up and administered, we're actually going to be providing a training course and a certification, so practitioners can go out there and actually administer this machine for people. And yes, its development will continue and awareness will grow, and then people could eventually have one in their homes and use it on a day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to just ask you a final question, just to kind of cap off the interview, which has been brilliant. Just finally, if you had to sum it up in an elevator pitch, why do you think this particular machine? I know the answer, by the way, but why do you think this particular machine is the best one out there at this current time?
Well, it's based, first of all, on my 3 decades of building machines. So the machine itself is probably one of the best designed electrolyzers, in that there will be as few problems as possible. So I give a lifetime warranty on the machine itself. So then the next thing is the actual application of the gas. I've developed techniques that make the machine the most practical to apply the gas. So we've got the efficiencies, that it's simply the machine that has all the features necessary to best apply therapeutically the gas, and also to last for decades.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I just to complement your answer, we've already looked at the machines that have come out in the last year or two, and currently now there are manufacturers out there still struggling to get a machine right, and you've got a machine right. And the key important thing about it for us, the reason why it stood out a mile from everything else, was its safety, ensuring that no gases from electrolyte can get through. The quality of the filtration, everything about it, how it's put together, it's brilliant, and everyone is really excited. And so we will update on all the stories and so on that come out. And really, my goal would be to try to get some clinical studies kicked off, and more clinical studies using this gas, pure gas, rather than trying a magnesium dosage is not controlled. It's not showing you what the hydrogen alone is doing.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing too, is that we are on the next level. Since hydrogen technologies have been proven to be it's hydrogen, not pH. Like, it was a big pH fad with the flow-through ionizers and stuff like that. But turns out it wasn't the pH, it was the hydrogen that was incidentally being put into the water that was actually getting the health benefits. So now people are coming up to that level where they're realizing that it's the hydrogen that's giving the health, and that's becoming more and more known. But we're already at the next level, because it isn't just the hydrogen. If you add that electrically expanded water, it supercharges what the hydrogen does. The hydrogen is a building block of life. Needed, no question. But you also need energy. You can't build a house with just the bricks. You need to have the energy to put the house together. So the body is like that. So, and when you get sick, especially, your energy reserves have been depleted, your energy generation systems are generally compromised, so you end up with energy deficient. So even if you were getting just straight hydrogen, your body is doing the best it can, but it doesn't necessarily have what it takes. So the Brown's gas HydrOxy, HHO, whatever you call it, in the Osmio Infinity also provides actual bioavailable electrons with the electrically expanded water, which literally gives the body energy. And you can measure this sort of thing when you with an ORP meter. So the ORP of regular tap water is going to be like positive 400. And positive means a deficiency of electrons. Positive is usually good, but in this case, bad. So the and so what you want is negative, because the electrons are negatively charged, so you want as much negative as possible. So if you have neutral water, it's 0, and if you have extra electrons, then it goes negative. So if you bubble like tap water, which has a positive 400 with the Brown's gas, it actually goes to a negative 250. Mm-hmm. So and that's what I call without cheating. You can actually go even lower, like with the flow-through ionizers, if you add minerals, and then it grabs on extra electrons. But just pure water, distilled water, the Brown's gas, HHO or HydrOxy, will take the ORP down to at least negative 250, negative 300. So now if you drink tap water and you drink it, it actually grabs electrons from your body and puts it into the water that you just drank. It actually de-energizes you, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And so when you drink the high or the negative ORP water, then it actually gives energy to the body.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's amazing, and we're so grateful to you, George, for working with us, and we're so happy to be launching this machine, and it's going to transform things over here. It's brilliant, and you've done such a wonderful thing for everyone out there. So I want to thank you on behalf of everyone that's going to benefit from this. You look like an angel. You are an angel, and I love you. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and doing this for us, and we are very excited. So I'll put this video on the page on the website, so people can watch this and look at the product and contact us and get going with it. So George, thank you again. You know, it's wonderful, and we're very happy to be your partner. So
you're most welcome, and that's what I needed, because I'm a really good inventor. I'm not a good marketer. So combining with people like yourself is just the right thing to do.
Yeah, we've got hundreds of health practitioners who are going to take this product, whether they know it or not. They're going to, because already one has booked one and the training as well, and can't wait to give it to his patients. And there's going to be bars popping up and all sorts. We want to see this as a medical product. We want to see it in hospitals and clinics and GP surgeries and so on. It needs to be there, but it will grow just by virtue of the people that it's impacted are telling hundreds of people. So, you know, that's the marketing, really. You know, it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it. It just needs the good intent that you have behind it. And thank you so much for that. You know, it's a real gift for everyone. And you went through such a journey yourself of bringing that to the table for everyone else. And that's what the universe has taught us to do that. That's your life's work and your purpose, you know. And what a brilliant thing to have done. I mean, I've got so much respect for you. Thank you so much, you know.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.